pigeon shouldn't be able to stop an artillery barrage. It's a ridiculous sentence. And yet in 1918, a single bird took off from a muddy pocket of French forest with a message strapped to its leg, and somewhere downrange, American guns fell silent. That's the story you've heard. Here's the part you probably haven't. A century later, curators ran DNA on the stuffed bird in the Smithsonian. Historians reopened the file, and the clean, heroic version started to look complicated. Not less brave, just more human and more interesting. Zoom out to the Meuse-Argonne Offensive, the biggest American operation of World War I. The U.S. 77th Division, mostly New Yorkers, pushes through the Argonne Forest. It's a tangle of ravines, machine gun nests, and trees that eat phone lines for breakfast. In early October, 9 companies move so far forward they're surrounded. Food goes short. Water is a crawl under fire away. And then it gets worse. American guns begin falling on American troops because headquarters doesn't know exactly where these guys are. They try runners, they try other pigeons, nothing gets through. Finally, one bird is left. If you've never handled a homing pigeon, the whole idea sounds like wishful thinking. But this was a real system. Birds trained to fly back to a specific loft no matter where you carry them. In a forest where wire lines were shredded and radio was unreliable, pigeons were an ugly, low-tech fix that actually worked. Both sides used them. The U.S. Signal Corps had mobile lofts, literal traveling co-ops, behind the lines. You sent a note out with the bird went home, somebody read it and acted. When the shells from your own side start landing, ugly but reliable suddenly sounds perfect. But here's the catch. That only matters if the note says exactly what someone in the rear needs to change. Vague pleading doesn't move artillery, coordinates do. The message that survives from that day is blunt and human, written under incoming fire. We are along the road 276.4. Our artillery is dropping a barrage directly on us. For heaven's sake, stop it. It's the opposite of flowery. It's a map coordinate and a plea in one breath, a field-grade way to say, you're killing us. That coordinate is the piece that lets someone at a desk or a plotting board match the guns to the ground and stop firing on the pocket. And that's why the note becomes famous. Except, there's a wrinkle. Retellings love to say the pigeon covered about 25 miles in about 25 minutes. It's neat. It's cinematic. It's also not the only version. The Smithsonian's own collection record says the flight took about an hour from release to mobile loft number 11, where a handler found the tube hanging from the remains of the right leg and a deep chest wound across the breastbone. That doesn't make the story less brave. It makes it real. In chaos, stopwatches get fuzzy, distances get misremembered, and later storytellers choose the cleaner number. Both timelines deserve to be laid on the table. And the thing that matters more than the stopwatch is this. The note had the coordinate, and someone back there understood it fast enough to change what the guns were doing. Walk into the Smithsonian's National Museum of American History, and you'll see the pigeon, one leg gone, chest nicked by a shot, mounted on a wooden base in the Price of Freedom exhibit. He's been there, off and on, for a century. But even museum labels can carry old assumptions. For decades, the sex of the bird was contested. Army records called her a hen, even as the museum labeled him a cock. In 2021, curators and scientists swabbed a century-old mount and ran DNA to settle it. Result: male. It's a tiny detail unless you care about accuracy, which is exactly the point. In public history, small facts calibrate big stories, and that calibration is about to matter, because the biggest assumption in the legend is next. You'll hear the phrase, "saved the lost battalion," as a fact in countless articles. A closer read of modern research, especially by Frank Blazich, a curator who spent years chasing the paperwork, says the beautiful cause and effect is far from airtight. Yes, a message got through. Yes, it included a coordinate. Yes, the shelling ceased, and relief followed days later. But tying the halt of friendly fire to this specific bird, on this specific run, isn't as clean as the movies. War produces gaps, records contradict. Public relations offices in 1919 loved a hero story as much as we do now. That doesn't make the bird less brave. It means the truth is harder work than a headline. If anything, that makes the moment more relatable. People under fire, doing their jobs with half-broken tools that still sometimes work. Strip away the slogans and you still have a gut-level feat. The bird came home shot through the chest, with a leg mangled enough that the tube was found hanging from what remained. French authorities honored him with the Croix de Guerre with palm. The U.S. pigeon fancier community added their own medal in 1931. In 2019, the story got a modern salute with the Animals in War and Peace Medal of Bravery, putting a World War I pigeon in the same honors roll as decorated military dogs and even a legendary Marine Corps horse. That's a long arc of recognition for a few minutes of flight in bad weather, moral and literal. But look closer at why pigeons worked at all, and the story stops being cute and starts being instructive. In the Argonne, you were fighting a forest as much as an army. Trees pulled down lines. Shells cut them again when you spliced. Radio was bulky and fickle. Birds, if you had the right training and a clear sky, punched through that chaos because home is a powerful algorithm. You carried the bird forward in a wicker basket. If things went sideways, you wrote short, tied the tube, and trusted brain wiring older than history. It wasn't magic. It was logistics. Lots of lofts, constant training, and soldiers who knew when a bird was the best packet switch on offer. And yes, sometimes they failed. That's not a reason to mock the pigeons. It's a reminder to diversify your comms when the stakes are blood and minutes. Why does the 25 and 25 line survive even when curators say about an hour? Because story beats win in memory. Because newspapers in 1919 were as capable of hype as an algorithmic feed today. Because a mounted bird on a plinth is a perfect photo, while a footnote about attribution uncertainty doesn't trend. The museum's DNA test didn't make the bird any more or less brave. It made the record more precise, and that's worth celebrating too. The idea that history is something we keep improving, even when a story is already good. I grew up with clean hero stories. They're easy to teach and easier to share. But when you work with maps and primary sources long enough, you learn to love the edges, the parts where ink blurs and coordinates wobble. Cher Ami is one of those edges. A unit under its own artillery, a note with a coordinate and a plea, a bird that makes it home. And then, a century of people who choose to keep the story shining, while a quieter group keeps the truth sharpened. If we can hold both, honor and accuracy, we get better at spotting hype in our own timelines, not just in the archives. So, did a pigeon stop an artillery barrage? A note reached aloft, a coordinate mattered, guns shifted, men survived. The flight time was probably longer than the myth. The sex of the bird is now settled by DNA. The link to the exact moment you're picturing is less certain than the headlines, but the courage isn't. The lesson here isn't that heroes are fake, it's that real heroism lives inside messy facts, and those facts deserve as much care as the mount in the museum case. You've seen the sources and the friction points. Which explanation fits the evidence best? And what would you add if you were writing the museum label?